procession and then hearing about this. And that brings us to today at another procession that's about to happen. Let's listen in right now to the memorial service for Officer Abdul-Khaliq, and we'll listen to the chaplain from the Austin Police Department as soon as we get that audio fixed for you. Next to him is Mayor Steve Adler. Next to Mayor Steve Adler is the Police Chief, Art Acevedo.
We apologize that it is hard to hear the pastor giving the opening remarks, but we are going to be hearing from the officer's son, Malik, a little bit later in the ceremony, and it'll be interesting to hear if he echoes the same sentiments as his father did.
Absolutely.
Since it is his.
Now you can hear me?
It wasn't turned on.
The Chief to the rescue.
Thank you, Chief. All right, let's listen in.
They never make me turn the mic on myself. I don't know what to do. Again, good morning and welcome. And once more to our Muslim family and friends who are here today, Salam Alaikum. We are honoring our friend and fallen brother, Amir Abdul-Khaliq. This is a time for celebration of his life and for the impact that he had on each one of us. He was born in Fort Smith, Arkansas on April 24th, 1970 to Amir and Jamila Abdul-Khaliq. He passed away on September 5th, 2016 at the age of 46. He's survived by his parents, by his children Malik, Mati, Saida, Safia, and Ibrahim, and the rest of his loving family and many friends. He played football in high school. He attended college for a while. He enlisted in the Marine Corps before he found his life's passion in policing. He began the Wichita Police Academy in Wichita, Kansas in the spring of 1996 and worked in the Patrol South Bureau and Patrol North Bureau until February 19, 1999, when, thank God, our brother came to Austin. He entered the APD Academy on March 22, 1999, and was commissioned as an Austin police officer on September 24th of that year. His first job was in the Southeast Night Patrol, but it wasn't long before his ability to connect with all kinds of people was recognized, and he moved to the Central East District Representatives. It will come as no surprise to those who know Amir to hear that he was a great success as a DR, but he had a bigger passion, and that was motors. So Amir began his career as a motors officer, working with the Northeast Motors Unit. For a while, he went back to his DR duties with the Northeast DRs, where, by the way, he was the DR for the neighborhood where my church was located, and where he competed with Eric Oakman for favored DR status. But the pull of motors was too great, and Amir went back to what he loved, serving with the Central Motors and finally with the North Motors Unit. Over the course of his career at APD, Amir received numerous awards and citations, including the Safe Driving Award with 3 stars, the Master Police Ribbon, the SRT Ribbon, the 10-year Honorable Conduct Award, the Meritorious Unit Citation, the Life-Saving Medal, and the Purple Heart. In the words of some of his fellow officers, Amir was well-liked and always had a smile on his face. He will be missed by his brothers and sisters in law enforcement in Wichita, Kansas. Amir and I graduated from the academy on the same date, September 29, 1999. Although we were in 2 separate academy classes at the time, I would interact with him when we had breaks together, and I immediately knew this guy had a heart of gold. There are not enough words to describe all the great qualities of Amir, but there are a few I can attest to personally. Marine, father, husband, co-worker, believer in his faith, honest, loyal, compassionate, trustworthy, humble, respectful, courteous, and above all, a friend. I will personally miss that brilliant smile, that big bear hug, and that booming "hello, Pastor" whenever I would see him out on the job. At this point in time, I would like to invite up Austin City Mayor Steve Adler with comments.
Assalamu alaikum. You know, you're going to hear, and have already heard, people tell you about this loving, strong man who protected us. He has witnesses here who will tell you who he was and what he meant to his family and his fellow officers. My opportunity here is a little different. I witness for the community. And it is my privilege to tell you, especially his family, what this man meant to this city. I never met Senior Officer Amir Abdul-Khaliq, but I have spent time with his family. I first went by on Saturday to Brackenridge, and I wouldn't bring it up except that Amir's mother, Jalila Abdul-Khaliq, and her two daughters told me something quite remarkable. In a moment when they would have understandably been focused only on Amir, they asked me to thank everyone in our community for praying and for sending love and positive thoughts. They said that they felt the entire city's support and they were thankful. This city, without question or exception, loved Amir Abdul-Khaliq. When they heard that he was hurt, they gave their attention and their concern. When the chief said that he needed blood, they gave. When we were told he needed prayers, we prayed. When we heard he didn't make it, we cried and we mourned. Most of those in our community who sent up prayers didn't know this officer at all, and many could probably not have told you his name. They didn't know that he was a Muslim and a Marine. They didn't know that he was a black man in a blue uniform. They didn't need to know. And if by chance they did know, they didn't care. All we needed to know was that he was one of us and that he was protecting us. In Austin, all those that knew him loved him. And since he got hurt, people have reached out to me to tell me stories about him and their encounters with him and how much they loved him. But for most of us, all we knew that he was one of ours and he needed our love and our support. We accepted him blindly without judgment or reservation. To his children, Malik and Mati and Sakada and Safiya and Ibi, you are growing up in a world where some would ignore the qualities that made your father special and would seek to divide him up to suit an agenda, but not here, not in Austin, Texas, not in his home. We don't draw lines to divide our city. We draw each other together. I need you, the children of Amir Abdul-Khaliq, to always hold in your heads that we hold him in our hearts. We will continue to do so. I want you to continue to think of Austin as your home, because this is where he made a home for you. His memory is one that we need to live up to, and his example makes us a better city. When your father was in the hospital, your family felt our prayers and our support, and that was real. This community hurts now alongside you, and I can tell you that I was 21 when my family lost my father. I can tell you that this hurt will, little by little, recede, and one day it won't hurt anymore in the same way, and that all that will be left will be the love that you had for your father and that he had for you. And it is my prayer that this community holds on to those prayers and those thoughts. It is not enough to be our best selves when one of us is hurt or in trouble. We must show love and patience and respect to each other in everyday life. It is up to each of us how we respond. When we leave today, let us see the face of Amir Abdul-Khaliq in everyone that we see, and let's treat each other with patience and with kindness and with respect that we all need so much now. This community is so very thankful to have been served by and to have been honored to share Amir Abdul-Khaliq. May he rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'd like to invite up for remarks Austin Police Chief Art Acevedo.
Good morning. No. Listen, we're here to celebrate a life of a lion, and we're not going to start off weak. Good morning. One more time. Good morning. What a wonderful morning this is. What a wonderful morning this is. Because a week ago today, I'll never forget that I got a call that one of our motor officers, a guy that, unbeknownst to me, was named appropriately Amir Abdul-Khaliq. Amir, which you all know that, I called him a prince with the heart of a lion. Amir, which means prince. Abdul, which means servant. And Khaliq is creator. A prince who's a servant to the creator. And I started thinking about why again are we losing such a great human being, such a great man, a father of five, who's not just a leader for this community, for this department, for this phenomenal motor squad. He's a leader for this wonderful family that I think is a family that knows nothing, that do nothing but lead. Why has he been taken from us? And I remember when I was at that hospital, this isn't so bad. As a matter of fact, some reporter called me like these good reporters do, where your phone started ringing off the hook. And I said, why are you calling me? It looks like he's going to be fine, And I'm at the hospital, I look at him, and he's in pain, a little pain, and the drugs started going in. And before I went in to see him, somebody tells me, he's not even going to recognize you. He's out of it. I don't know who told me that, but somebody told me that. So I walk in there, and after I let them do their thing, and I said, Amir, man, I said, you're pretty even all banged up. And here's a guy who's in pain, probably drugged up, and without a beat, he looks up at me. I thought it was Muhammad Ali for a second there. He says, I could never be as pretty as you, Chief. A man that was just in this horrific crash. And so we were so full of hope when this family came in from all over the country. We were so full of hope that he was going to pull through and that we were going to continue to enjoy our relationship with Amir, a man that, truly, that picture that we use, these mugshots that we use on each other, doesn't really speak to who he is, because he looks so tough on the outside, but then when you sat down and you met him and talked to him, he was just an easygoing, loving, caring person. And then, I want you to think about what this has been all about. This sacrifice of this man, that in this country today we have this ugly debate about religion, about immigration, about people that don't look like us. We try to paint people with these broad brushes. And Amir Abdul is a man that gave his life, and I think God has a purpose, and his life that was given this weekend was to serve as a reminder that faith is not about what form of faith we choose to believe in. And we're going to hear a prayer later on from the Sheikh, who at that mosque talked about we're all serving one God. We may have different prophets, but we're serving one God. And think of where he gave up his life. He gave it up in Austin, Texas, where the police chief is a crazy immigrant Cuban that is the first Hispanic. The manager is the first African American. The mayor is a Jewish American. The person that gave up his life is an African American who is a Muslim. And what we showed and what he helped us show the rest of this nation is that we shouldn't be putting people in little boxes and assuming that they can't fully participate in this great nation of ours. We showed that a Jewish mayor can get a phone call that said, we have an officer down, and he leaves a football game, which, by the way, if you're in Austin, it's either UT or nothing else, right? Hook 'em. Leaves it, probably the biggest game we've had in quite a while, to come to the hospital. And he didn't see a Muslim family. He didn't see a black family. What he saw was an American family whose servant son was on the verge or had just given his life. And so today, as sad as I've been looking at my motors, and by the way, I love whoever picked those pictures, because how many civilians are in here? Just members of the community, just make some noise. Let me hear you clap. All right. Well, you got to see that motor cops actually do smile on those pictures, right? They actually do. They actually care. And I've gotten to see the strength of the men and women of our motor unit as they've gone along the last week with this family, taking care of business, taking care of the family, taking care of each other, taking care of the city, not backing away from their mission. And so, to the family, I want to just tell you from the bottom of my heart, you are an amazing example to people of all colors, to people of all faiths, of how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. We're supposed to conduct ourselves with faith, respect, strength, and unity. And you have been an example, I think, for the rest of this nation. This city has been an example with our city manager and our mayor and our council of how we are supposed to conduct ourselves as communities of faith and involve all else as Americans. And so to Amir, you know, we've got 2,500 employees, and he's always stood out for all the right reasons. I know that we're going to see him again. There's no doubt in my mind. I know that this Marine, Wichita police officer, Austin police officer, African American, Muslim, has set a standard that is not just here in Austin, but is really set around the country. And my thanks to him is thank you, Amir, for being a reminder of what the United States has always been, what it's always stood for, and what makes it the greatest country on earth. You showed that nobody can define who you are, not your religion, not the color of your skin, nothing other than the content of your character and what's in your heart. And so to the Austin Police Department Prince, with the heart of a lion, who fought. I mean, we kept losing him probably 5 or 6 times, and the amazing people at Brackenridge kept fighting to bring him back. Thank you for the reminder. And to our family, know this, that you've inherited, again, the Austin Police Department family. When you leave here back to your homes later on this week, it's not goodbye forever until we meet again. We love you. I feel like I've gained parents and brothers and sisters, and I'm going to miss you. The last week has been an amazing journey, and I want to thank you for the privilege of having been on that journey with you. God bless you all. May Allah bless you all. And to my Muslim community, we stand with you as we do with all communities. And let's walk out of here united and with the heart of servants and the mind of a prince, that we want to serve our Creator, which is one and the same, no matter what scripture you follow. God bless you all. Thank you.
This time I want to invite up Officer Jermaine Kilgore, who was Amir's support officer at the hospital. He's going to come to share some personal comments about his friendship with Amir.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. I was doing good until the chief, that last couple minutes. I'm gonna try my best to hold it together. Thank you, Chief. Those were some kind words, and it's hard to follow. You know, the chief is very eloquent in his speaking. I'm going to try my best to hold it together for my partner, my brother. For you guys who don't know me, I'm Senior Police Officer Jermaine Kilgore. Been with the department about 11 years. The first time I met Amir, I've been spending so much time with Malik. I call him Malik and his name's Malik. I'm just kind of bad with names sometimes. I've been knowing Amir for several years. The first time I met him was around 2008 when he was a district representative in the North Bureau. We worked several overtime jobs together between 2008 and 2014. In early 2014, after my assignment with the Public Information Office, I decided it was too safe in there. Too safe. Too many cameras. I needed to go back out in the field. So I transferred to motors, and I went to Amir's shift. When I came to the shift, I didn't have a partner. So I approached him. You know, I had known him from working some jobs around the city, and we talked briefly, and I asked him, hey man, you wanna hook up? You wanna be partners? And at first I got the impression that he was kind of unsure about me. You know, he was like, yeah, we'll just kind of hang out. You know, I'm kind of quiet. I'm kind of to myself, you know. We'll hang out here and there, you know, and I know what that meant. He just wanted to check me out, make sure I was good, you know, make sure that I was good enough to hang out with him, you know. I understood that. But we started hanging together, and we became partners. We were the dynamic duo of North. Every time you saw him, you saw me. It was like old school with a little mix of new school. Every call he was on, I was on there with him. When you saw him, you saw me. Now, Amir has siblings, brothers, sisters, and so do I. But he quickly became more than just a partner. He became a brother. We shared similar interests. We both loved football. We were both good old country boys from Arkansas. And, you know, our values were intact. We knew and we appreciated what was important, that was family. We both served in the military. Well, I guess I served in the military. I was in the Air Force, right? And that was a running joke. We used to joke with each other all the time, you know. He was a Marine, you know, the toughest of the tough, right? Devil dog, all that, right? I used to joke with him all the time. And he knew if he had to do it over again, he would have joined the Air Force. He told me that. Those were his words. Quality of life in the Air Force, so much better, so much better. And obviously our love for motorcycles. We had a lot of the same interests. Most days began with him waking me up around 5:30 a.m. Either I would text him or he would text me. And he would ask, where are we meeting that partner for breakfast? You know, I didn't even need an alarm clock. Most days, my phone went off, I knew it was Amir. We'd make plans for breakfast, and I'd ride in from my side of town, he'd ride in from his side of town, and we'd meet up. And we'd have coffee. We always had coffee. This is the time we would sit down and have many discussions. We would talk about our faiths, we would talk about our family, you know, we would talk about our children. He was very open in explaining his traditions, his Muslim traditions, practices, and beliefs. You know, a country boy from Arkansas, I grew up Baptist. You know, I was Christian, and I didn't know much about the Muslim faith, but I was open to it. You know, I was curious about it, you know, why they did what they did, and he was open. We talked about it. And it's amazing how God brings people together, no matter what your faith, no matter what your background. And we were brothers. We were brothers. This is why, you know, before I even laid eyes on Mr. and Mrs. Abdul-Khaliq, Ahmad, Jathia, Najla, Kasim, I knew about him. You know, he'd tell me stories about how he grew up, and, you know, stories about mom and stories about dad. So it was like I had an extended family, and I hadn't even met these people personally before. So unfortunately, in these circumstances, this is how we had to meet. But, you know, God never makes any mistakes. And my faith has been really tested going through this process, but I know that one day I will see him again. He would mention the deep conversations that he would have with Dad, the many conversations he had with Mom about getting a good set of sheets for his bed and furniture for his place. He told me about Jathia's new job in Atlanta and how in a few years he looked forward to retiring and moving there. He told me about Najla and how smart and intellectual she was. He would share with me how Ahmad was a clown, and they constantly were laughing about everything and anything. And Kasim, he told me that you were real good with money and a little few frugal, but he admired that quality about you. He talked about that. These are the kind of things that he shared with me and made me feel like a part of the family. This is what we did every day. However, Thursday, September 1st, was a bit different. We didn't have our breakfast together like we did most days because I came in a few hours late. But we were still texting back and forth, as we always do when we are not together. I went to the North Substation to complete some paperwork for the both of us that we needed to complete while he was away doing his funeral escort. I heard the dispatcher come through the radio saying that a motor officer had been involved in a crash and needed officers to begin heading that way to assist. I came over the radio and I let dispatch know I was headed that way. As I was driving towards the scene, I heard one of the units call in the license plate of a motorcycle that was involved. For some strange reason, when I heard that license plate, I knew that that was my partner. At that moment, my focus was just getting to my brother. When I arrived, he was already loaded into the ambulance. So I followed the ambulance to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, I was by my partner's side, and I didn't want to leave him. As the chief alluded to earlier, he was talkative. You know, I thought that everything was going to be all right. He was in pain, but he was able to say, "Hey, Kilgore, hey, man, I got to go to the bathroom, man. Help me get up off of this table. Take this belt off me, Kilgore." I said, "No, man, you got to sit down, relax. You're in bad shape, man, but we're going to get through this." As motor officers, we know the risks that we take every day and the possibilities that we face as being motor officers. But nothing prepared me for the moment that I lost my brother Amir. There are no words that can say, or that can truly express what I feel for Amir. But what I can do is remember the good times that we shared. I can remember so many funny stories and times, and I'll share a few of them with you. You know, there was two partners. There was old school and there was new school, right? I told y'all about that. So old school, you know, he's getting up there in age a little bit, and I used to always tease him. You know, just like most people, you get there up there in age, and you got to change that prescription out, get a little stronger, right? Those eyes start to fail you a little bit. And, you know, the right eye was a little bit better than the left eye. As motor officers, the senior guy always rides to your left, the junior guy to the right. For us, that tradition, that custom worked perfectly because I was always on the side where the good eye was. Sometimes we'd pull out of a parking lot and I'd end up in the up position, which is the left, and I would always say, buddy, let's switch. And we would laugh and we would joke about that. You know, I'd ride down the highway and I'd put my left hand up to my face shield like this to pick with him, and he knew what that meant. And we'd just be laughing going down the highway. I don't know if you other motors guys remember our last day of training, or one of the last days of training a couple months ago. You know, we were doing the shooting drill. I don't know if you guys remember that. We ride around, do our patterns, and we had a little competition going. You know, you ride around, do the patterns, and then you jump off the bike, you pull out your gun, you go to the shooting range, and we had to engage our targets. And I watched Amir. He's riding around, and we're watching him. He's going around doing the patterns. He hops off the bike. He's running up to the shooting line. He goes to pull his belt, his gun from his belt. The belt just falls off. So he had to get himself together, you know, get his belt back on, and he went up to the firing line and he took care of business. It's all those stories and all that I'll always remember him. APD family has many memories of Amir and the great person that he was. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Amir. He always had a smile on his face, and he treated others with respect. He was a man of great character, and he had a very kind heart. So Malik, Monty, Saida, Sophia, and Ibrahim, take comfort in knowing that your dad was a great man. And he touched many people, and most importantly, he loved you with everything that he had. He always talked about his children. When you guys were going through anything, your dad was going through it with you. He always talked about you guys. Make him proud as you continue to live your lives. Keep him in your heart and know that he's still with you. Please remember his legacy. Make him proud, be great, and know that you have lots of brothers and sisters in blue who will forever be behind you. And know that I'm your new uncle. And if you ever need anything at all, please don't hesitate to call me. I will always and forever be here for you. In 100 years, a motor unit has been in existence in Austin, Texas. This is the first motor officer that we've ever lost. It's going to be really, really hard to get through this for all of us. Amir lost his life doing what he loved to do, serving his community and putting others before himself. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Abdul-Khaliq, for sharing your son with us. We will go on and continue to do this work with Motor 13 forever in our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine. I'm going to invite up now a young man who, over the last week or so, we've gotten to know and can tell you that he embodies the great qualities that were in his dad, Amir. Will you please welcome Malik?
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. I'm speaking from the heart today because a written down speech wouldn't do any justice for my dad. And so this week, the entire week leading up to my father's death was a challenge for both he and I. I was just getting ready to start working again for myself in private contracting, and I fell sick for 3 days, very sick with a fever. And I was trying to get well because, some of you don't know, I'm the black sheep of the family. I'm the crazy little cowboy. My dad always made fun of me. And I had a bull riding tournament that day. And I was actually calling him because he wanted to come, and I was telling him the times and where it was at. And, you know, me and my dad, we've had a wonderful life together. We've had our ups and downs. We've had our headbutts, only because even though I could never do some of the things he did, we were the same person. And so it was like two bulls in a pen sometimes. We just couldn't get along. But the last few years, because we are alike, we've gelled together very well. Things to know about my dad as a father, speaking as his firstborn son, is everything he did, from discipline, jokes, laughter, lessons, religious lessons, I feel prepared me to be able to deal with all the things that have happened this week. My father was very tough, very strong, very loving, and for some of you know, he was the warden when I was in school. My dad protected me from a lot of things, and I thank him for it. The day that I found out that my father was hit, I was actually getting ready to take a nap, and I talked to him just 30 minutes before. We were laughing about some stupid song I'd showed him. So it made me think about him. And I get a call from a number I don't recognize, and it was Officer Kilgore. And he tells me that my father had been hit and where I was at that point in time. And I told him where I was, and he said, "We need you to get to Brackenridge." And I said, "Okay." So I said, "Just give me a second, and let me get my thoughts together, and I'll call you back and have the escort come get me, or victim services." And so I just had to sit there and think, how would my father react? Would he break down? Would he freak out? No. If there's one thing my father has taught me in life, with religion and with morals both, when in fear, stand up, no matter how scared you are. When your faith is tested and life is hard, pray harder. When on the football field and you're hurt, don't show it, push forward until you can't push anymore. And that morning was weird. I went for a run after being sick, and I hadn't ran in I don't know how long, and for some reason I felt stronger than ever that I had in a very long time. And I think that was a sign that was the strength that I was going to need to be able to help my family through this. To my grandfather and grandmother, I thank you so much for making the perfect man for a father. And I mean that with every drop of me. To his brothers and his sisters, I'm not even going to try to imagine what it was like losing him. I know he was y'all's rock, and so he was for me. And I'm glad y'all got to have him for a long time. And I want to look at y'all as my family, and I will tell y'all I'm not going to try to be my father because I can't. I don't think I ever will. But I will try my best to fill his shoes. And to the police department, I thank y'all for everything y'all have done up until this point, and I hope to join y'all in my father's place very soon. To my friends and family, thank you for your support, who all is here. I've come to a loss of words because my father is just that great of a man. And I love y'all. Thank you.
Officer Kilgore, we'll be talking later about the comments about getting older and eyesight issues. And we're about to come to the end of our service, but before we do, there's a tradition that we have in the Austin Police Department we began a few years ago when one of our officers goes down in the line of duty in a very tangible way, we try to express our love and appreciation and respect and honor for the family who gave that officer to us. And so I'm going to invite you as an audience to stand and give an ovation to this family on behalf of our fallen officer, Khalil Abdul. Thank you. I'd like to invite up now Amir's father, who has some words he would like to express as we prepare to close.
I'm sure you all understand that this is a tough moment and very special. And I thank you, my family especially, for being here. It gives us strength, the support that you all have come as far as you have to be with us, and we love you. And I know you all love Amir, and you love us, and we thank you for that. I'd like to thank the chaplain, the chief, the mayor, and Malik especially. I saw a man today. If you all would give me just a few moments, just relax, please. Yes, sir. Oh boy, the chief is special. I'm going to say assalamu alaikum first, and then I'll say good morning. I gave tribute to the city of Austin, the chief, the police department, the victim services, the 100 Club, I think it's called, for supporting us and helping us to get through this. You all have made it easier for us. You've gone out of the way to just really make things comfortable for us. Anything that we wanted or thought of or dreamed about, it happened this week. And that speaks for the impact that Amir, the Prince, Abdul, the servant, Khaliq, the creator. There was a guy I remember named Kareem Jabbar. He realized later, and I'm sure somebody from the East told him, that you can't be Jabbar. Because Jabbar is a big name, is one of the attributes of God. Just like Khaliq is one of the attributes, it's one of the names of Allah. And you just can't call somebody Khaliq, because Khaliq means creator. And Abdul means servant. And between Abdul and Khaliq, there's a little slash if you look at your program. That means he has to be the servant to the creator. Amir obviously had some kind of impact on you all. I don't know what he did and how he did it, but our family have received so much love and appreciation for the work that my son has done, our son has done in this community. I would like to share with you all what it was that made his character, made him the person that he is. I know the media, when you watch TV, or you pick up the newspaper, or you listen to the news, the media has painted us as being the worst thing on earth. But you never judge the book by the cover. You have to go in the book and find out what's really there. That's what makes the character. It's not the external of the book, it's the internal of it. And Amir exemplified not the cover, but he exemplified the contents of his religion, which is called the Holy Quran, the word of Allah. I was just listening to something this morning, and I listen to lectures and read the Quran and so forth and so on. And Amir was very studious in his religion. One of the sheikhs, one of the imams told me the other day that Amir had corrected him on some mistake that he had made. The sheikh should be the wise one, the smartest one, but Amir was very studious. And he corrected me a number of times, and his mother a number of times, because he studied hard. He had in him what this religion stands for. That's the reason that he had the character that he had. I was blessed and fortunate to pick, and I kind of had a feeling I knew what I was doing when I made this pick. And this was 49 years ago, and it happened to be his mother. All I've done is supported her, and she did the work. She raised 5 children. She stayed at home, and I worked hard to make sure she was there for our children. Why? Because that's what I wanted when I was a child. So my job was to make sure that my children got what I wanted. And she did a great job. She gets the credit for them. All I did was just provide for them. She's the rock. There is a chapter in the Quran called, help me, honey, Al-Isra, thank you. I'm a little nervous. I'm sure you all can hear that in my voice. But there's a chapter in the Quran called Al-Isra. And Allah says in that chapter, and I'm sorry, I looked for the verse this morning, I couldn't find it, but I looked and I looked and I looked. But it's there, and the sheikh can verify this. And it talked about the first thing and the most important thing is that true believers, real Muslims, I'm not talking about the media Muslims or the Muslims that don't measure up, or they identify all of us with, which you know that that's not so, because so many of you have told me that Amir was perfect. He wasn't perfect. I had to get him a few times in his time. You know, I think when times like this come about, we always find the good things to say about somebody. He wasn't perfect. But in this chapter in the Quran, it talks about what's the most important things that we have to believe. And that is nothing is worthy of worship except Allah, God. And Amir believed that. And then it talked about the parents, the respect and the honor that you show your parents. That means that the parents has to. Respect is nothing that's bought or given. It's earned. And my wife earned that, and I did a little bit to earn that. And our kids show that. In this particular chapter, it talks about how the parents, how the children are responsible to their parents. But we have a responsibility to them, and that's to teach them the right thing. It says in the Quran that a child is not to even say, you know how we, when pops or mom tells us to do something, we just say, huh. In the Quran, it says, don't do that to your parents. Don't even say, Well, I didn't know that when I was coming up as a child. And most of us have done that. I'm sure my children has done it, but they went away and did it. They didn't do it in front of us. They went somewhere else. They just held their breath until I guess they got a place that they could just let it go. Our children are not perfect now. But they understand what their responsibilities is to their parents. But we had to understand our responsibilities to our children. And we worked hard on them. Sometimes we worked too hard on them. Sometimes we were too hard. I remember Amir coming home and I told him, I said, now you have a curfew and you must be home at this time. He said somebody he didn't know asked him, do you know what time it is? He reminded Amir, if you don't make it there by this time, and I know your father has a curfew, you're going to be in big trouble. So he took off and he went home. He said, I didn't even know who the man was. But he knew me. He knew his mother. And he didn't want Amir to get into trouble. He made it. He made it on time. That's all that matters to me. Because if he didn't make it on time, he was in big trouble. But Amir prayed 5 times a day. When we pray, we have to wash. There's a question asked. If a man washes 5 times a day, or if he takes a bath 5 times a day, can he be dirty? Not really. He'd really be too clean if he took a bath 5 times a day, to be honest about it. So my point is what I'm trying to say is that's where Amir came from. That's what made him who he was, is his beliefs and how he believed and how he practiced that. And I think he was open with it to a point. His partner told me the other night that he and Amir would be riding somewhere. And Amir said, hey man, let's take a break for a few minutes and I'm going to run back here and I'll be back in a few minutes. And he said after Amir had done that several times or enough time, he began to wonder, what is Amir doing? Why does he do this at this time every day? And then he figured it out. He said, hey man, you don't have to make any excuses. I know you're going to pray. Just go on back there and pray. That to me means a lot. His mother, again, did a great job with him. And just another comment or two. I remember we had all of the kids came for Christmas. And they brought us together. And they said, okay, Daddy, Mama, what's the balance on the mortgage of your house? I couldn't imagine this. Why do you want to know that? Why is that important to you? He said, because we're going to pay it off. We're going to make sure that you all are comfortable. We're going to take care of you. That's the payback for the great job that my wife did. We have joy in our children. Amir passed from this life last week. But his family broke up a year or so ago. And I saw him die an emotional death. Right in front of my eyes. I saw him lose the most valuable thing to him, and that was his family life. It broke up. That killed him. Because he wanted to be a father. He wanted to complete his job like his mother had taught him, to take care of his family. And you could see a little bit, just a little bit, of what Malik had to say. They loved their father, and he loved them. He took extra work to make sure that his family had what it needed. His wife was at home with her children to take care of them, to make sure they had what they needed. They didn't have everything. We didn't have everything for them. but we gave them all that we had. If you give all that you have, and you show love for that, with that, and you show strength with that, you're on top. You don't have to have $1 million. You can take $1. My wife used to go to she used to go to the thrift store. I don't know what they call them today. What do they call them? Somebody help me with that. Huh? What's that? Oh, still thrift stores, okay. I heard there was a secondhand store, and somebody else gave me another name the other day. But they call them thrift stores where we came from. You all understand that these are used clothes, secondhand clothes. I worked hard, and my wife went to the secondhand stores. But she went to the secondhand stores was closest to the richest neighborhood. And she were able to find the nicest of the secondhand clothes. So the kids, when Amir and his siblings, his brothers and his sisters would go out, they dressed well. They looked well. They were clean. Creases in their pants. Nice shirts and things like that. But they were secondhand. And they did it with pride. It didn't have to be new. And they wore it with pride, and they looked rich. That's what I wanted for my kids. That's the reason I went to work every day. That's the reason she gave us 5 children. The prophet was approached by a man, and he asked a question to the prophet. He asked, who should be dearest to me? Who should be dearest to me? Of course, the Creator should be dearest to him, and the one that brought his message. And then the mother. And then he asked, then who next should be dearest to me? What did he say? His mother, or your mother. Twice he said, your mother. And then he said, then who next? Your mother. Thank you. For the 3rd time he said, your mother. And then who next? Your father. You see how much credit that the mother should get? Why should she get that? She carried you for 9 months. And she had a heavy burden on her. She suffered in pain for 9 months. And then when you came into this world, there was no drug and no medicine could stop 100% of childbirth pain. And she suffered with that. Matter of fact, her mother and I took her to the hospital when her water broke. She laid for 23 hours trying to get Amir into this life, into this world. One of the reasons that I chose her as a wife is because I met her mother. And her mother was strong and would tell you exactly what was on her mind. And she told me somewhere about the 12th or 13th hour that you need to fire that bleep, 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 bleep doctor. He don't know what bleep, 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 bleep he's doing. And don't let my daughter die with that bleep, bleep, bleep doctor trying to take care of her. I'll put my hand on a stack of Qurans and say, this is what she did. Well, I couldn't fire the doctor because he was the only African-American doctor in the city at the time. So she suffered for 23 hours trying to get him here. Nobody can do that for a child. When he was hungry, she fed him. When he was wet or whatever, she changed him. When he was dirty, she washed him. She took care of him. Even he would call her and talk to her about things that he wouldn't talk to me about because she was his mother. So a mother goes through a lot of, and she did it 5 times too. You remember that, okay? Remember, she did it 5 times. And when I got the call from Malik, and he told me, and I understood Malik was having trouble trying to get the message over to me because he was in pain. I know I can tell on some of your faces, hey, hurry up, man, because I'm tired and I want to get out of here. Okay, I respect that. But please, just give me another moment. I want you to know who Amir is and where he came from. Then Malik told me, Pops, Daddy has been in an accident. They call me Pawpaw. Pawpaw, Daddy's been in an accident. Okay. Then I said, how is he? He said, it was bad. I said, Malik, is he living? Is he alive? Or is he dead? So he took a few deep breaths, and so I just imagined whatever came to mind. So he told me, he said, well, he's in pretty bad shape, so you need to get here. He said, no, I'll call Nana, which is the grandma. I said, no, I'll take care of that. So we got the word, so we started on our way. We got here, and he was alive. He left, or he passed. The heart quit beating. So I saw my wife. This was the second time this had happened because the chief told me they lost him earlier that day, I think it was. And this was the second time. So I saw her just give up hope. Okay, we accept that for what it is. And as Muslims, we understand that Allah has decreed, even this moment, Allah has decreed this. Everybody in here, it's not by accident you are here. It's already been written that you were going to be here this day, and I saying what I am saying. This is what we believe. So it was decreed whatever his outcome was going to be. So my wife, she gave up and she got comfortable and accepted the fact that he's gone. But the hospital did an excellent job. They worked, and they got him back. So it was like, whew, he's going to be okay. So our hopes built up again. After a while, it happened again. And we went down again. Or she did. She went down again. But they revived him again, and the hope went up again. I said, man, you're doing the same thing that you did when you was trying to get here. I mean, you're just fighting, hanging on, you know? But it got to a point as to where we said, hey, okay, we got the message of Allah. We accept this for what it is. So he went, he died, he passed. And we believe in accepting whatever Allah's will is. Be it good or be it bad, we're human. We're going to hurt, but we can't control life and we can't control death. Only God Almighty, Allah, can do that. So he took him. We accept that. It's not easy, but we accept that. But I gained another son when I got here, and that was JERMAINE. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you and your wife. One of the kids called her mother, and wanted to know where they were, and they were helping us, and said, well, we're just running late. Have you taken your bath? Obviously, they hadn't. So they must have hesitated like our kids do. And she said, again, have you taken your bath? And we hate to take you away from your family, but we appreciate what you all did for us. And that was Amir. He was a faithful person. He believed in what he believed in, and he gave it all he's got, all he had. And I thank you all, Muslims, Christians, Jews, for supporting us. The chief has really given us all. The what group do you call it? The bike group or motor groups? Thank you. We thank you, motor groups. Hey guys, you are real brothers. I appreciate you all. You showed a lot of love and gave us a lot of strength. The whole department, from the top to the bottom, has really been wonderful for us and to us. You've accommodated us beyond thought. Yesterday, the kids went out. I can't say what all we did, probably. Can I? I think this is probably the most humble the chief has probably been. But you know, he's a humble person now, don't get me wrong. He's a very humble person, and I like him because he has a good nature about it. But they took us on a boat ride. And the kids just enjoyed themselves. Matter of fact, I even drove one of the boats. We went up on the lake or river or whatever it was, on the dam. I think the chief was a little concerned, but I used to have a boat. So I went back up the lake and we had a good time. We left. I think we went to lunch after that. Is that right?
Yes.
What was the name of the restaurant we went to for lunch? Huh?
UT Club.
UT Club. I don't know if that's an exclusive thing or whatever it is, but it was very nice. Thank you, Chief. And after we had lunch, we went to the University of Texas. We walked out on somebody got a football before we got onto the field, and boy, the kids were just running and throwing the ball, and I got out there, and the temperature felt like it's about 120 degrees. But the kids, it didn't matter to them. I got a little granddaughter, she's asleep. Thank God for that. Her cheeks was rosy, they were just as red, and her face was red, and the heat from the field and the sun and all was just burning them up, and I'm trying to find some shade. And they were kicking. Did anybody ever kick a field goal?
No, just one guy.
Who was that?
You.
Oh, Q kicked the field goal. But it was about 10 or 12 tries with everybody else. And the reason he kicked the field goal was because he's left-footed. And the kids had a wonderful time. We go back in, and then we ended up in the tower. Y'all know about the tower. I remember that incident. I didn't remember all the details, but they took us through and gave us all the details and information on the towers. I'm just telling you about the day before yesterday, and the kids were like hanging around in the hotel and just blah, 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 wasn't doing anything. And it was hard. It wasn't easy. The only thing you could do is think about daddy, right? So after that, we took all the kids back to the hotel, and I think they went swimming and so forth and so on. Is it okay if I tell them about the rest of it? You sure? Now, you sure now? Yes, sir. And he invited my wife and I to take a helicopter ride. So we got on the helicopter and flew up the river. Man, that was cool. That was really, what do your kids call it today? What? No, that's somebody old is saying that. Where's my tea? What do they call it, my tea?
Chill. It was chill.
Chill?
Yeah, chill.
Okay, we'll go with that then. So anyway, it was chill then. So we landed in a field and the oh, I'm sorry, Chief.
You're good.
Am I good, Mary?
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
So we landed in an open field, and the chief took us to, he introduced us to his wife and son. Beautiful people, wonderful people. And then we went to dinner. The chief talked, and I talked. Jamila talked. And the chief, she had a tear or two. That speaks volume for the police department. Some tears, you know, we just like, doesn't that really come out, you know? We just, you know, like my kids, whenever they get in trouble and they know they're gonna get something for it, they fake those cries and things like that. It was real. The chief, he was real. And we love him for that. We appreciate that. You know, he's a genuine person, and we really appreciate that. So anyway, I've said more than I need to say, but I want you to know that Amir was a Muslim. He was a practicing Muslim. He wasn't the cover on the book. He was what the content of the book was. That was Amir. Thank you all, and I salute you for everything that you've done for our family.
Watching our special coverage of the memorial, the public memorial service for senior police officer Amir Abdul-Khaliq. That's taking place at the DELCO Center right now. It is going to continue with a closing prayer, but we are going to be live streaming that over at KXAN.com right now.